Hi there, I'm Janine, and you're listening to Quest for You. This is my podcast, and it is episode 213. And I realized that this week, my topics are a little bit on the vulnerable side, quite personal, and I thank you for listening to them and for accepting that I put myself out there quite a bit this week. And today's topic is also very personal, very sensitive. It's about feeling alone, and I'm going to start out with a quote by Mitch Albom. "The only time we waste is the time we spend thinking we are alone." That means I've wasted a lot of time. I often have wondered if there are people out there like me that feel alone. The feeling of being alone has accompanied me most of my life. And I'm sure if I see a professional about it, we can probably figure out where it comes from. But looking in the past is not a priority for me. I prefer to look forward. Can analysis of the past help me with that? Sure it can. But everyone has to make their own decisions of how they want to deal with it. So I have taken some time to analyze my loneliness and what helps me to feel less alone. And if you're one of the people that experiences this feeling like me, from time to time, I really would like to hear from you. Maybe I can learn from you. Maybe we can learn from each other. But what I found out is this. I don't live in a constant state of loneliness. Loneliness is a feeling that sits very deep inside of me, hidden from plain sight. In fact, the few times in my life I mentioned to friends that I felt that way, they were very surprised. Lonely? You? Yes, me. Hard to believe for people that know me, that see how busy I keep and how productive I like to be. You would think I don't even have time to feel alone. But what if all my busyness is just a strategy that keeps me from feeling lonely? We all have our ways of dealing with our things. If it works, then why not? But sometimes it doesn't work. Loneliness can hit me in the busiest of moments. And when it does, I'm the least productive person you know. The feeling of loneliness, however, doesn't just come up randomly like a gust of wind. It is usually triggered by a story I tell myself. We talked about stories in episode 189. Stories are interpretations of facts. They are the commentary our thoughts make to the things that we experience. My loneliness is a feeling that arises not by what is happening to me, but by how I interpret what is happening. And what is happening is often related to other people. Maybe a date didn't work out, a plan with a friend fell through, an argument or disagreement with a person that is close to me, an event friends of mine went to and that I also would have liked to go to, an unanswered email or text, which is probably the worst of all. The amount of storytelling that goes on in any of these scenarios and others I may have just not thought of in the moment is incredible. There's the fact, and then there's the unknown. Why didn't this date work out? Why did my friend cancel? Why did we argue about the same thing again? Why didn't they invite me to go? And why is he not texting back? It starts with why, and then it goes downhill from there. And whatever my answer is to the why, that's the story I tell myself. And then I become wedded to the story. And that story then leads to a feeling of aloneness. Everyone is having fun but me, as an example of a story. So I discovered that loneliness arises in me after I told myself a story that provokes that feeling. There's the fact, I'm alone. But then there's the story. The why I am alone. The why I was always alone. And then the why I will always be alone. And that adds the negativity to the mix. That is what brings me down, the interpretation of a fact. There have been many moments in my life when I took a deep breath and said to myself, "Thank God I'm finally alone." Being alone doesn't have to be bad. It just depends how we decide to look at it. But every time I feel lonely, I realize there's more. What is loneliness telling me? This is the question I often ask. Why do I feel this way? I'm sure feeling alone goes back to the things that happened in my childhood, or maybe even before. But again, I don't see a need to figure it out. What I do need to focus on is what to do when it happens, or better even, before it happens. I've come to realize that loneliness arises when I'm not paying enough attention to myself, when I rely too much on the outer world for attention, entertainment, and fulfillment, when I place too many expectations on other people and events in order to gain happiness and satisfaction. I feel alone when I'm not stable and balanced within myself. And that is when I become vulnerable to my negative thoughts and my fictional stories. Feeling alone is my weak point. It's a sign that I have become emotionally ill and that I need to take care of myself. What is it for you? What do you feel when you neglect yourself? When you lose yourself a bit too much in the glimmer of outside distractions or the energy of other people? While everything is good and happy and goes your way, you don't feel it. You high-five yourself. You think, finally, I'm on a roll. But then, inevitably, something happens. Something doesn't go the way you hoped. The person you met shows a different side. The getaway you planned for weeks took an unexpected turn. The job you surely thought you would get didn't work out. You were so immersed in everything and suddenly you face emptiness. That's when loneliness hits me. When I've become too reliant on the world around me to fill my time, my needs, and my emotions. I'm very curious if others experience something similar. Or maybe a different kind of feeling. Rejection, not belonging, shame, not feeling good enough. When I'm too removed from myself, I feel loneliness. Let me repeat this insight. When I remove myself too far from who I am, when my focus is mostly directed towards the outer world, that is when I feel lonely. So in essence, this loneliness is not because I miss or need other people in my life. It's because I miss myself. I miss being together with myself. I've lost the connection with me, with who I am, and with what matters to me. Quite an insight, don't you think? Human connection is important, there's no doubt. We are not meant to live in isolation. Other people enrich our life in ways that cannot be replaced with anything else. But our connection with others are only as effective as our connection with ourselves. If you're not grounded within yourself, if you're not in touch with who you are and your values, then you will be just as lost in the presence of other human beings, swayed back and forth by their moods, their opinions, and whatever matters to them. And when they leave you hanging, your ground slips away underneath your feet because they take that ground with them. It wasn't your ground that you stood on, it was theirs. And then loneliness hits because you have nothing left. I have found that I don't feel alone when I'm standing on my own ground, the ground I built solidly for myself, because then I don't depend on others to fill the empty space. People come and go. Loud and crazy and wild times with a lot of people are followed by quiet times, alone. No matter how much of a party person you are or how extroverted you are, there are times we are physically alone. It's a fact of life. Yet we don't need to feel alone during those times. Nor should we strive to always surround ourselves with people in order to never be alone. We need alone time. Do some of us have more time alone than we would like? Possible. But again, this does not have to be more than a fact. Once you realize that this is a fact, just like the weather that may be sunny or rainy today, it's a fact. And fact should be followed by action, not interpretation. Because 100 people We'll add 100 different interpretations to any given fact, and all can be right or can be wrong. So next time you catch yourself interpreting your loneliness as something negative, catch yourself, just like I try to do, and take it as a sign that you need to pay more attention to yourself. I call it coming back home. I've been out too long, playing around, having fun, but I neglected my home, my inner world, and here is how I come back home. Presence. Become aware of what's going on and return to presence. Get out of storytelling mode and simply come back to what is. Look around. Acknowledge what is. Your life, this moment, what you have and who you are right now. Reliance on the outside world always takes us far outside of our presence. We plan, we reminisce, we build castles, we hope, we invent, all based on perceived outcomes. And when these outcomes don't materialize, our bubbles burst and we fall hard. Come back home to yourself. The fullest of your attention needs to be directed on yourself. Ground yourself. Know who you are and become confident within yourself. This is what will sustain you when the outside winds blow hard. This will allow you to think clearly. And when plans don't work out, you don't get flustered. You already have a plan B in mind. Then you don't get paralyzed like I do, feeling lonely and unloved. Instead, you immediately shift your focus onto something else. The only cure for feeling alone is to get closer to yourself. Because we can never force togetherness with others, nor can we rely on it to make us happy. But when I'm close to myself, when I can look in the mirror and into my eyes instead of just my legs or my abs and acknowledge how pretty I am, when I actually take the time to step onto my balcony and see the world at my feet, the beauty around me, the amazing life I'm privileged to live, when I take stock of my accomplishments, the wonderful people in my life, and everything I've experienced so far, life then takes on a new perspective. And when I realize the opportunities that I have in this very moment, then all negativity, sadness, and emptiness disappears. Because I've come back home. Home to where I'm most myself. Where the fact that I'm alone is not the only fact, but one amongst many others. And then, only then, I'm in a place to take action. I acknowledge the fact that I'm alone, and I feel motivated and confident to put my shoes on and go out into the world and make a connection with another human being. Or pick up a book and connect with the words on the page. Or go for a run and connect with nature. When a person leaves you hanging, when an event doesn't pan out, when you experience loss or rejection, acknowledge it. It's a fact. And then ground yourself again. Take stock of everything else you have going for you. Gather new strength. Shake off the dust and then get going again. There is more to be had in life beyond this one obstacle. Come back home first. Become present. Realize how amazing you are and that your worth is not decided by someone else who may not value you. And then go out again, this time stronger, with both feet on your ground, and connect with people from your ground, from a place of better awareness. Because remember, better awareness equals better choices, better results. Much love, my friends.